So hello everybody. All right. Okay, so why you can't have a seat at the table. So I was on Facebook earlier today and they were talking about the Black Leadership Summit happening at the White House today. When they're sending on all the black conservatives to talk to the president and get photo ops. A friend of mine, he's a conservative, and he basically believed that this was some big event and that we were finally getting a seat at the table and they're going to get to talk to the president and get some things done. And I wrote back to him, I was like, listen, he's only doing this because he's speaking to a hate group, the Family Research Center, this week. And he wants to have something to where people can't call him, racist or say he doesn't care nothing about minorities. Now, the Family Research Center was listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. And there is actually one of the lower classifications of hate group, which is a rogue group. And the Family Research Center, their main focus is LGBT people and getting them linked up with pedophiles. So they're painting all gay people as pedophiles, and they're trying to say they have evidence of saying that all gay people are really pedophiles and things like that. And so they're a hate group because they're going against what science has already determined about gays through a myriad of research, that pedophilia is a separate orientation than LGBT. So even though the hate group isn't specifically against black people, he's bringing black people to the White House just to say, so everybody will think that he's not a racist. And that's all this is going to be. It's just a photo op. And it really goes back to this idea that it's even possible for us to have a seat at the table. Like, if any of those conservatives step out of line, then they're going to get kicked out of the meeting. If they do anything to challenge the president or ask him, why is he dealing with Steve Bannon or Steve Miller or any of these people, they'll just kick them out and put another black person in his place. And I think that one of the biggest problems in the black conservative movement is that they haven't found their own center before joining up with the mainstream of conservative politics. And I think this should happen on the left, and the center should do this too. You have to really solidify what it is you're asking for, what it is you want, before you go in these spaces. So you're not just there for a photo op. You're asking for specific stuff to get done, or you're trying to advocate for specific things. It's not just going to be a photo op and just to say that you know someone in the White House and have their email address. I mean, that's not going to get anything done. And that way, if you need to compromise, you can make educated compromises that are ultimately productive. One thing I say about the black conservative movement right now is just something they're using just to attack other black people with. And a lot of these conservatives have a lot of shadow around dealing with other black people because they feel like black people think they're sellouts just for being conservative. And they really got to get over that, because people are going to continue to think they're sellouts if they don't have a clear message and they're not just denigrating other black people. Like, I've heard a lot of conservatives talk about how all black people vote Democrat because they're brainwashed, and that's not true. The Democrats are the ones that signed the civil rights bills in the 1960s. So since the Democrats were the one in power then, and they did that, we all voted Democrat because we felt like they would do more for us. And in the 60s, they were. The Republican Party also, right now, they've got Steve Bannon still as a chief advisor. I mean, he's not technically in the role anymore. He got fired, but really, he's still advising the president according to news reports. And if you read up on the guy is an avowed racist. He actually said the term racist is something we should be proud of, to get called a racist. And it's not just Donald Trump. It goes back to Pat Buchanan. Even though he was a third-party guy, he was still a conservative politician. He was always talking about Western civilization was under attack, which is just a dog whistle for white civilization was under attack. Mike Huckabee said that black people aren't really citizens because an amendment to the Constitution can't make someone a citizen if there's a Supreme Court case saying that we're not. I mean, it's just the list goes on and on. And so the racism on the Democratic side is less blatant. That's the real difference. But either way, you have to always always look at these things from what am I actually coming in to ask for before I go to this meeting. Just having 100 black conservatives show up at the White House for photo ops isn't going to get anything done. Like, is there going to be a lasting relationship built? Like, one of the things that A. Philip Randolph was good at, he came in there, talked to FDR, and built a lasting relationship with the Democratic Party. And that's a lot of the reason why a lot of black people are Democrats is because of A. Philip Randolph. He didn't just come to one meeting at the White House and just brag about how he was at the table. He built a relationship to where he could keep going back for new things over time. And A. Philip Randolph is the man that introduced MLK to John F. Kennedy. So, and now that happened because A. Philip Randolph started the Brotherhood of Pullman Porters, and Ed Nixon was in charge of the branch in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, Ed Nixon was getting old, so he had Martin Luther King run the boycott. And Martin Luther King did such a good job that Ed Nixon introduced Martin Luther King to A. Philip Randolph, and then A. Philip Randolph introduced Martin Luther King to the president. So there was an infrastructure there that they had built independently, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. They had an agenda, they were working the agenda, and they were finding talent as they went along, and the talent gets moved up and meets new people. So that's the kind of mindset you have. You can't just show up at the White House for photo ops. And I say the same thing if it was a Democratic president. I mean, Obama had 20 so rappers show up to talk about prison reform, and nothing got reformed. Like, Obama wasn't any better than Trump on this. Like, he would parade black folks around when it was convenient also. So to stop this from happening, we really got to sit down and decide what is our political agenda on the conservative side, the centrist side, and the leftist side or liberal side. So if you don't do that first, you're just going to go and be paraded around, and then people are going to forget about you. Like, and another thing is you have to realize the way the system is now, you can't have a seat at the table. It's not about getting to the table. I mean, because if you get to the table and the system is set up in a way to where you can't advocate for black people, they'll just kick you out and put a new guy on. And so that's why we don't need 100 black conservatives to show up at the White House, take a bunch of photo ops. I mean, none of these black conservatives are asking for any specific thing. None of them are asking for more SBA loans to be given to black people. None of them are asking for any money to be set aside. Nothing. No, they're not asking for a specific regulation to be removed that'll help small business. Like, they're just there for a photo op. And he's just doing it so people can't say he's racist for talking to this hate group. And the fact that they're letting themselves get played like that shows a lot about who these people really are, as far as, you know, are they, you know, people that you can really trust, or people you should really listen to as far as your policy is concerned anyway. So this is just another photo op. Nothing's going to come of this. I got an email from Hotep Haru, one of these Hotepers, talking about Turning Point. He tried to call and get an invitation to the White House from Turning Point USA, and Turning Point USA wouldn't give him a ticket and pay his travel to come up to DC. Like, of course they're not. So I mean, all these brothers up at the White House right now, they've been vetted through like Turning Point USA. They're not independent black people with an agenda coming to get something done. They're just people that are good with Turning Point USA that's not going to cause any waves. And if you're there specifically because you won't cause waves, then there's no real reason to believe that they're going to do anything for you or build a relationship with you. Like, that's just not how it is. And so why would they do that? You know, if you haven't set up an agenda, you haven't gotten anything done, even just outreach to other black people. I mean, one thing that kills black conservatives is they come out saying that black people vote Democrat basically because we're all just dumb. Like, we're all just suffering from groupthink and won't let people think independently. And that's from Shadow, where they've been talked bad to by other black people about being conservative, not being solidified in who they are enough to give good reasoned answers for why they're doing what they're doing and why they believe what they're doing. And so, I mean, until they can really get some headway in the black community where they can talk to us and, you know, convince us of some of their things are right, you know, they're not going to have any power. That's the thing. If you're black and you want to lead and you want to have influence, you have to prove you have influence among other black people first. That way you have a group of people coming together to back you up. If you just go up there by yourself, they'll co-opt you, they'll parade you around a little bit to say to affect their agenda, but you won't ever have your own agenda. And that's Democrat or Republican too. So I'm not saying this is only with the Republicans or only with conservatives. It's with Democrats and conservatives. But either way, you really can't expect to come to the White House to actually get anything done. Just random, you know, 100, 200 people picked by Turning Point USA to come up and talk to the president for like 5 minutes and take a photo. And people are trying to trot this out like it's some huge victory, like they got some pull in the White House now. Like, they're just up there for a photo op. And I don't see how they're letting themselves be taken through the ringer like that right now. Like, it's just silly. A lot of people try to fire back with the Family Research Center is against LGBTQ, but in reality, you don't think the people in that organization would be also against like interracial dating? You don't think people in that group are also working to stop interracial dating or stop immigration or stop affirmative action? I mean, all this stuff is related. You know, it's not one thing and nothing else. Everything about patriarchy, misogyny, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, it's all related. And if we're not tackling all this stuff together, we're not going to get anywhere. So, I want to talk a little bit about Megyn Kelly and the Blackface statement. To me, it wasn't the worst thing she said by a long shot. And I can kind of see her point in that every time someone puts darker makeup on to look like a black person, the intent wasn't to make fun of black people. Like, there was one story by Larry Elder about a kid who dressed up as his hero for Hero Day at school. And he dressed up as Barack Obama. So it was a white kid, and he put on dark makeup to look like Barack Obama. So, yes, he was in blackface, but I don't think the child's intent on that was to be racist or make fun of Obama. He really wanted to look like Obama. So that situation, yes, he was in blackface, but I don't think he was racist or he intended to do that. First off, the kid was in like 7th grade, so he might not even understand the whole history of blackface before he showed up. And I saw this other video with a Latin woman who was trying to look like Nicki Minaj. So she used darker makeup to dress up as Nicki Minaj. And so, again, she is wearing darker makeup, so it is blackface. But I don't think her intent was racism. I think she genuinely admired Nicki Minaj and wanted to look like her. Now, the kids in South Carolina who had the Martin Luther King party and dressed up as gangsters in blackface, that was obviously racist. So there is racism in blackface, and there's people that are somewhat just misinformed or just having no bad intent in it. So, I just have to really look at everything case by case, and I don't think that everybody who wears darker makeup to look like a black person should be punished the same way. I don't think they all should be just run out of town on a rail. I mean, I think generally people should just dress up like other people in their race for Halloween. So if you're not Native American, don't put on a Native American outfit, even if you're a Redskins fan. I hate to see a black person at a Redskins game in the chief feather headdress. Like, that's ridiculously offensive to Native people, and we need to be in solidarity. Now, the funniest thing about the blackface comment is many white people come back and say, well, what about the movie White Chicks? In White Chicks, the Wayans brothers dress up as white women and painted their skin white. Well, the difference is that nobody white, from my knowledge, was offended. Like, if they were offended, then they should have been boycotting and picketing outside the theater and having something to say about it. But that movie went through a mainstream movie company run mostly by white people. So from what I can tell, there was never any problem with it, with the people that were there. So, I mean, there was nothing really to worry about. And if there had been, I would say the Wayans brothers need to issue an apology and move on. And that's how it should be handled. I mean, I don't think blackface is the worst offense in the world. I don't think it's something that people should do willy-nilly either. So, I can't think of the comedian's name right now. He was a Mexican comedian. He's talking about racial jokes. And he was like, a white guy can do a joke about black people. It just needs to be funny. Like, you just have to understand the risk you take when you do certain things. So if a white guy tells a joke about black people and it's not funny, then he's offended everybody and he's got to deal with that. And he has to stand up and actually deal with it. But, if he wants to play it safe, just don't talk about race. Like, I mean, freedom of speech isn't freedom from consequences. So, I mean, yeah, that's just all there is to that. I mean, I don't have any real deep issues with some of this stuff. So, well, that's all I got to say for right now. So, I'll see you on the flip.